Welcome to Podcast Answers, the show where I help you start and grow your podcast, all while answering any podcasting questions along the way to help you get started with the craft that is known as podcasting. Because while podcasting is easy to do, it does take some technical knowledge, and not everyone is technical by nature. So that's why I'm here. I love answering questions. I love being able to help people start their podcast, because podcasting is something that is great to be able to get your word out, to get your knowledge out. People want to hear you and what you have to say. So podcasting is that avenue, that place for you to be able to do what you do. So with that said, today, man, if you are not live on with me, you really should be. I do this show on YouTube every week, and I also do this on the new podcast apps. So stream video to YouTube, which is, YouTube Live. You've done that before. You've seen that before. And then new podcasting apps allow you to listen to a live stream of audio going on right in your podcast app. And I'm streaming right now to live podcasting apps such as Podverse and Fountain and all of the new podcasting apps that can take that. If you've not checked out any of those, go to podcastingapps.com or newpodcastingapps.com. Either one will take you to there, and you can see which ones will allow you to listen to live podcasts. And this is a live podcast. I record this live because I like having people to be able to listen to me at the time, and you get to see some of the things that I do that you don't come into the final product, like the fact that I've started this show 2 times already today, and the YouTube audience and the live podcast audience that are with me in the new podcasting apps got to see that, because I first forgot to hit record on my Rodecaster, so I wasn't getting audio. And then secondly, I forget what I did, but I said something wrong. I messed it all up. And so you get to see that if you're with us live. If you're not, you don't get to see with us live. So what are we talking about today? We are talking a little bit about using Zoom for your interviews and what that entails. And I've talked a little bit before on this show about using Ecamm in the new integration, Ecamm for Zoom, to bring in your guests, and how easy that is to do that on Ecamm, bringing in video. But what if you're not actually doing video? What if you're not using Ecamm? I recognize that Ecamm, for one, is a Mac only program. It is the best program ever, and they have an awesome community. Not everyone has a Mac. Macs are expensive, but if you have a Mac, go ahead and use Ecamm. But not only that, but Ecamm is a either monthly or yearly subscription, and not everyone can pay for that. And then on top of that, you have to add Zoom in there. So you can do some of this stuff. Now, what I'm talking about today is going to be mainly just audio and getting audio for your podcast, because because video with Zoom, you can get it and you can record it on Zoom. You can even live stream on Zoom. So Zoom is a good option, a good alternative if you don't really know, like if you really just want to live stream, or if you want to catch your audience but you don't want to pay for a third party. Now again, you're not going to have all of the fancy dancy schmancy things that you have when you are recording in something like Ecamm, because you're just not going to have those. But if you are like me, or if you just want to use Zoom, you can use Zoom. Now, you could just use Zoom as a free program. Zoom does allow you to have a free account, and the thing about that is you can have as many people on your meetings. It's limited to 40 minutes though, so that is the key. If you're just using Zoom and have a free account, your meetings are limited to 40 minutes. And so what that means is that's going to have a little bit of a problem when you try to do a longer interview, because that's the whole thing. And so if you get your guests on, you're doing a pre-show checklist, and you're doing all of the things that we've talked about pre-show, and then you start recording, you may have already wasted 10 of your 40 minutes. And so then you have 30 minutes left, or even, heaven forbid, if you use 20 minutes, then you're down to 20 minutes left. And so really the Zoom free account is not a good option when it comes to using this for recording your podcast. Yes, you could do it, and yeah, you could definitely do it, but I don't necessarily recommend it. So what you can do, Zoom is not that expensive for a year-long subscription, and the nice thing about it is you get 30-hour meetings. Oh man, if you had a 30-hour meeting and you were using Zoom on your podcast, wow, that'd be a tiring Zoom meeting. But you could do a 30-hour meeting with your Zoom. There are reasons you would want to do a long Zoom meeting like that, and with the paid account, you get that. You also get, with the paid account, 5 gig of storage, recording storage in the cloud. So Zoom has a couple different ways that you can record it. So you could do this really simply. Let's say you don't even have a nice soundboard, you don't have a setup. You could just use some sort of USB mic, like the pod mic or something like that, and not the pod mic, but all of the Shure mics and things. Well, even the pod mic does have an USB option. You could use that, and you could just go right into Zoom. You wouldn't have a whole lot of audio control, but you could do it and record. And the recording options in Zoom are really cool because it allows you to record locally if you wanted to just use locally, and you wouldn't come up against that limit of the 5 gig. You could record locally. You don't get as many options for files when you do that. And I'll explain the files in Zoom that come with the cloud recording. Or you could record to the cloud, which is great because then it doesn't have the processing power, and you actually get a lot more video recordings and audio recordings that you can use later while editing your podcast in a third-party app like Adobe Audition or Audacity or something like that. And so let's talk a little bit about the settings that I recommend in Zoom first, and then we will go ahead and talk a little bit about what we want to do in Zoom. So if you're looking at Zoom and you go into the settings, which I recommend that you do, so you are, let me go ahead and make that bigger if I can. Oh, I can't make that bigger. Okay, so in the settings in Zoom that I would recommend is you go into the audio tab, and you're going to be able to set your speaker and your mic. And so that's going to be dependent on what you are actually doing with your mic and your speaker. Now, Zoom has some audio profiles because, again, Zoom is really just a audio conferencing thing. It's really meant for audio conferencing, or not audio, but audio and video conferencing. It's not really meant for recording. Yes, you can do it, and you can do a lot of things with Zoom, but because of that, it is by default going to try and make the best audio quality for you. And so by default, when you speak, it's going to try and isolate your voice. But especially if you're doing things like this, where you have a soundboard or you have, things like that, it's going to pull those things out because it's going to think that, hey, I'm trying to make it so that you can hear Andy's voice. And so audio profiles, Zoom background noise removal is usually checked, personalized audio isolation, or original sound for musicians. And so I suggest that you choose that. And again, this is the audio that you're sending out to the Zoom meeting. And so if you're having people on and you want them to hear your sound, then you're going to want to turn this on, original sound for musicians. And same if your guest is playing something other than just their voice. But the nice thing about Zoom is it does do a pretty decent job at isolating audio. And so if your guests are in a noisy room and not using a sound board and using something like I'm using right now, then and there is noise around them. Like my soundboard is the Rodecaster Pro, and on the Rodecaster Pro, it has an audio gate. It has a noise gate. And so if I'm quiet, you can't hear anything going on at all. If I'm quiet and the dog starts barking, if I'm on a guest session, or if I'm somewhere and I'm stopping talking, you can't hear what's in the background. Zoom does that for us a little bit. And again, like I was saying, in these settings, you want to go ahead and go into the original sound for musicians. And I turn off high fidelity music, echo cancellation, and stereo mode. Now, one thing to know is every time you're in a meeting, you have to turn it on, and you don't turn it on here. This is where you're saying you're allowing yourself the option, but you're not actually turning it on. And so if we go back into the Zoom, and I'm going to go ahead and start a Zoom meeting just so you can see what it's like. If you're watching this on, you're going to get a nice, hey, that's kind of fun. you're going to get a whole nice thing. So essentially, I'm in a Zoom meeting here. I had my video on, and my video is feeding from my live stream. So it was making that nice little endless loop of video. So up in the right-hand corner here, you're going to see something that's called original sound. It has a little green badge, and then it says original sounds for musicians off. And this is the part you have to do every time you're in a meeting. Click that, and now it says original sound for musician on, and you get a thing saying original sound is on, noise suppression is disabled. And so now, if I talk or if I play my sound effects, people on my Zoom meeting are going to see and hear that because it's sending original sound for musician back into the meeting. So that's one of the things that is the major thing that I would do for you and your recording, because again, you want to be able to send that sound. Now, if your guest is on a soundboard like the Rodecaster Pro, like the Mackie ZL's Creator, all of those other soundboards and things like that, you're going to want to have them turn that on too. And so you're gonna have to walk them through that, because you want the best sound of coming through. Like they're already producing a good sound. And so you want that sound to come through to them, to you, so that you can record it. So again, for me, when I do a Zoom meeting and I'm recording it, I'm still recording on my Rodecaster Pro. I'm bringing the Zoom audio in, on my Zoom. So for me, the Rodecaster Pro, if I had a Zoom meeting going, on the Rodecaster Pro, there's 3 different USB channels. There's a USB main, USB 1 chat, and USB 2. And I usually bring things where I'm going to have chat coming through into the chat channel. That by default has the mix minus turned on, and you want that turned on because you don't want to feed that back. And if you've never seen a mix minus, I have an episode of mix minus, so go back and listen to that and see what all mix minus is. You can find that at podcastanswers.com. But you're going to want to have that on for them to, so if they're using a mixer board, turn it on. So for me, what I do is then in Zoom, I have my mic and my speaker set as the USB chat channel on my Rodecaster. And then I can still control them coming in. I can hear it. I can bring their volume up. I can bring it down. I do my recording on the Rodecaster, even if I'm bringing it in through Zoom. But you do not have to do that, because Zoom has, like I said, 2 different recording options. Recording locally, which allows you to get a recording of the audio and the video. And I believe you don't have a lot of options in there. And so you wouldn't be able to have things go in there and have all sorts of different settings. So with that, what I want to do is I want to take you in. This is the Zoom settings. So if you are in Zoom and you go to your settings for your account and you go to the recordings tab, you'll see a cloud recording, and it says allow hosts to record the following to the cloud. And as Zoom meeting is what you want to allow that. And then you can say, these are the settings that you actually want to set. Record active speaker with shared screen. So if your guest shares screen, then you're going to also choose and see active speaker. Record gallery view with shared screen. Turn that on so you get the gallery view with the shared screen on. If you want to go back and actually have video edit where you can see everybody and mix it and stuff like that, you're going to want all of these checked. Record active speaker, gallery, and shared screen separately. So this is active speaker. You'll get a file for the active speaker. You get a gallery view, and you get shared screen. So you'll actually get 3 different files of those things. And then here's the key, especially if you're going to be recording audio and want this maybe in post-production, especially if you're not going to be recording on a Rodecaster like I am. I'm recording. I just use the Zoom as a backup recording in case I need to have that. But what you would do is record one audio for all participants. So you get one audio file. It's a mix down. Record a separate audio for each participant. What that does, guys, is that allows you to have a mix minus. You can have a separate audio, not mix minus, sorry, a separate audio file for everybody. So in case their dog starts barking, then you can actually turn their channel down while somebody else is talking or while you're talking or something like that. And so that's really the ones you want. You can also choose save chat messages from the meeting and webinar. And so that allows you to go ahead and see any chat messages that are, into your recording also. So those are the settings that you're going to want to record when Zoom. And what's great is, again, you record to the cloud. It's going to record all of those things. It's going to have an audio file, one audio file for every participant, recording separate audio tracks for each participant. So that way you can go ahead and use those separately later. If someone was talking or forgot to mute their mic or whatever, you in post-production can take them and dip their audio volume down, and then you don't hear that in the final mix. And then if you are doing video, you're going to want separate audio recordings for active speaker, gallery view, shared screen. I want all of the recordings that I can get, because I want to be able to, if I want to go in later and see, let's say I have 35 people on a Zoom call and I'm recording that. Now, again, this is probably not going to be for a podcast, but if I have 35 people on a Zoom call and I'm recording that, I want to have the gallery view and active speaker separately. That way I can be mixing in the video and the audio if I want to have whoever's speaking, but then I want to go to like a audience shot, if you will, then I can see the gallery. I have that. I can mix that in later. It's going to be something that I can use. So again, Zoom is a good option. Now, again, there are other options that are maybe better than Zoom. I'm thinking, there are some that do what they call a local recording. So it's essentially a double ender. And if you're not familiar with a double ender, what it is it means if we're doing an interview, and let's say I was on the phone. So this goes way back before internet and everything like that. What you would do is, if I was talking to you in an interview, I would record on my machine locally. I would have my track local. I would be talking to you on the phone, but you would record local. So I have a high quality of me and I have a high quality of you. I'm using the phone as the transport, the connect, if you will, so that we can hear each other. But at the end of the show, you send me your file. So I have a local copy, a good copy of mine, and a good copy of yours. I mix those together. It sounds like we're in the same room. There are products that do this now. So you have a local copy of yourself, and you have a local copy of the guest, and then they upload it. It actually uploads as you're talking, but the recording happens locally on the machine. And the reason that this is important is because if you don't have a great internet, if you have an internet dropout, if your internet is kind of wonky, the delivery is wonky, Zoom, you'll start to get this artifacting robot-y sound type of a thing. And so that works. It's okay. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen sometimes because the internet is a big pool of computers, and sometimes it takes a while to get from one to the other, and that audio quality can be degraded. So if you're using something like Riverside, then it records locally for you and it records locally for the guest, and it uploads them to the internet. It makes the double ender a whole lot easier, because back in the day when you did this, you'd record it, then you'd have to use something like Dropbox or some other way to get the file to them. Riverside actually just uploads it seamlessly, and then you can download it. The one issue that I had with Riverside is, even though I was using it because I didn't have super great internet, I still found it being an issue where my files wouldn't complete. I wouldn't get the full thing. It just didn't work out for me. So I started using Zoom for my interviews. And while it does artifact and does have some issues sometimes, for the most part, it's a good product. For the most part, it works well. And especially since I'm doing the producing and I have a local copy of my own voice, because I am recording locally on my computer. So I do have my own voice locally. So I get the highest quality I can from me. People are going to be more likely to put up with not quite as high quality from your guests, because they know it's a guest. And so if it does artifact for a few seconds, it's probably not that big of a deal. I just find that Zoom is an easy thing to do. People have used it. People use Zoom all the time, right? Since the pandemic, people have gotten used to using Zoom. People know what Zoom is. People have Zoom on their computers already. It's really easy for them to join a link. They don't have to go, okay, you need to go to this website. You need to allow your camera. You need to do this. You need to do this because it's a website-based thing. They know Zoom. They've used Zoom. And so it's easiest to say, let's just jump in a Zoom call together, and I'm going to record it. And let's just talk. Let's just have an interview face-to-face over Zoom. It works great. So guys, Zoom, yes, it does cost something, especially if you have the pro level or business level account. It is going to cost you some. And the more you pay, the better, the more features you get with Zoom. But for the most part, a pro account is going to be good for what you're doing. It gets 5 gig worth of recordings. And for me, I record it and I download it. I get rid of it off the cloud once I'm done. And that way I don't take up my cloud recording in Zoom. So yes, it does cost something, but it is well worth it to make good quality, good sounding interviews in Zoom. Guys, thank you so much for listening, for hanging out. If you've got questions, I would love to hear your questions. I'd love to answer your questions. You can go to podcastanswers.com/contact. Again, that is podcastanswers.com/contact. And you can contact me and ask your question, and I would love to answer your question for you. Guys, I'm going to be switching my recordings. Right now I'm recording usually Tuesdays or Thursdays at noon Eastern. I'm going to go ahead and record. I think I'm going to switch to Tuesday evenings. I haven't decided on the time yet, but I would love to get more people on live. And I think people are going to be able to watch live more likely if we are not doing this during the day. So next week, look for a change in schedule. Have a great week, guys, and keep podcasting.